Are you a property owner and worried about oil tanks? Well, as undesirable as they are not something to worry about, as the removal process is actually quite simple and not as inconvenient as you might have previously thought. First things first is to know the background of underground storage tanks, USTs. Some properties have USTs buried on their grounds due to the fact that oil as a fuel was overtaken by natural gas in the 1950s. This meant that there was no longer a need for these tanks, so many of them were buried underground and thought to be out of harm's way. This method, in fact, was harmful, as even though the oil was drained from the tank, there was some residue left over in many that could leak into the soil and damage the environment around it. Since then, to avoid or stop what has already happened in terms of contamination, it has become the law in British Columbia for property owners to have the USTs removed from their land. There are very few exceptions to this rule, so if you know you have an oil tank, you should start planning to have it removed as soon as possible. One problem that many people imagine is, if the fuel tank is buried, then how do I know if I have one on my property? There is actually a very simple way to find out. If you call an oil tank removal firm that operates in the region, they will be able to inspect the premises and let you know. There are many companies that use special scanning equipment that utilizes radar technology, and this can tell you whether or not there is a UST buried on the property without invading the land at all. Then if a tank is found, arrangements can be made for its removal. To start the process, a small area or land around the tank site will be cordoned off. If you go with a well-reviewed and professional oil tank removal service, you will be amazed at how little disruption is caused and how not very much space is taken up while removing the oil tank. The team will operate as quickly as possible by digging up the tank and cutting it down into smaller pieces. By doing this, it will be easier to remove the oil tank through smaller spaces away from the property, for example, through the back garden gate. The smaller tank pieces will be recycled and the land that contained it will be refilled. Once the oil tank removal process is finished, you will not even notice that anything took place, so it really is nothing to worry about.